Good evening and welcome. This is a regular meeting of the Planning Board on March 16th, 2023. Pursuant to Section 13 of the Open Public Meetings Act, adequate notice of the time and place of this meeting has been given by prominently posting the resolution of regularly scheduled meetings of the Planning Board of Princeton for February 2023 through January 2024. A copy was filed with the Clerk of Princeton on January 17th, 2023. Legal notice on the adoption of said resolution was published in the January 13th, 2023 edition of the Princeton Packet. Notice of this meeting also has been posted to the municipal website, princetonnj.gov/calendar. Notice that all regular and special meetings of the Princeton Planning Board will be held electronically via Zoom, was transmitted to the Princeton Packet and the Times, and was filed with the Clerk of Princeton on Tuesday, January 17th, 2023. Please note that this meeting is being recorded. During hearings on applications for development, members of the public will have an opportunity to comment and ask questions. Questions may be asked after an applicant's witnesses have testified. Public comment is heard by the board after an applicant's representatives have finished their presentations, have been questioned by planning board members and staff. Those wishing to comment orally should virtually raise your hand by clicking on the reactions or raise hand icon at the bottom of your Zoom screen, or if participating by phone by pressing *9. Oral comments will be taken in the order in which hands were raised. We ask with respect that members of the public express your views in 3 minutes or less. We'll have a countdown clock to help speakers keep track of time. Please note that speakers who exceed 3 minutes will be interrupted. Inappropriate public comment containing obscenity, hate speech, or relating to matters not before the board will be muted. Ray, would you call the roll, please?
Ms. Capizzoli,
Here.
Mr. Chow, Mr. Cohen,
Here.
Mr. McGowan, Mr. O'Donnell,
Here.
Mr. Quinn,
Here.
Ms. Sachs, Mr. Texarney,
Here.
Mr. Taylor,
You're muted, Jack.
Here.
Mr. Bodekheimer, Mrs. Wilson.
Here.
We have a quorum.
Good, thank you. Well, we're missing a few folks tonight, but we have a very, very light agenda, so that is just fine. Announcements. I have just a couple of quick ones. Folks might have noted that the opening statement, while it's still long, now omits reference to the pandemic. We changed it to just take that out because it really is no longer relevant. We will continue to meet by Zoom. I'm sort of, I suggested doing this and folks agreed, staff agreed, based partly on the fact that the Historic Preservation Commission also no longer references the pandemic. And so I just felt like it made sense to be consistent among the BCCs as much as possible. So thanks, Julie, for taking the lead on that. And also for those of you who are not watching March Madness, Princeton,
Yay!
I have my Mardi Gras beads on because Princeton, number 15 ranked Princeton beat number 2 ranked Arizona about 35 minutes ago. Really exciting. So it's not my place to tell everybody that news, but it's pretty exciting. So what the heck? So that's all I have. I know Justin's got a few things.
Yes, yeah. Well, my first announcement is my bracket's busted from that news. So good to know.
But it's a good thing.
It is win-win. But thank you, Madam Chair. I do have a few announcements. I might be the longest part of tonight with these handful of announcements, so I'll try to be quick. But feel free to stop me at any time.
Take your time.
The first is I sent the comments on the area in need of rehabilitation designation from our last meeting, I think it was, to council, and then I forwarded that email and the memo to all the planning board members today. It is not currently scheduled at council for the proposed resolution. The next announcement, there is a community roundtable taking place Saturday on the Princeton Theological Seminary tenant Roberts Whitley site. And that'll be taking place Saturday from 10 to 12 at 400 Witherspoon in the main room, the council chambers. If you have any other questions about that, feel free to ask or feel free to attend. Yes, Mr. Quinn.
Thank you, Mr. Lesko. A question for council, council, SEL. Would you advise that we not attend since it's possible that the site plan will be brought before us, Jerry, or?
No, I think it'd be okay to attend.
All right, thank you.
Yeah, and this is a summary of what's happened at the site, an orientation of the site for those that don't know the history and what's there. It's not yet any sort of discussion of a redevelopment plan. As you all know, that would come before the board with the whole redevelopment plan requirements of the local redevelopment and housing law. So we're still way before that.
Although I will comment that it's also an opportunity for the community to weigh in. It won't just be a presentation, but it'll be
Yes.
a listening opportunity.
Thank you for that.
Right, so, I mean, just to follow up on that, I assume it should not be taken as an opportunity for planning board members to weigh in on what we think should happen on the site. I mean,
Yeah,
for us, it really is a listening opportunity, right?
Yeah,
Just as-
very good point. Very good point, Louise. Absolutely, we should not wait.
All right,
And the meeting will be recorded because it's a discussion. It's not going to be on Zoom or anything like that, but it will be recorded if you would like to look at it after. So then the next announcement, I will share my screen for as it relates to the master plan. And let me get this full screen. So as I've been saying these past couple weeks, obviously there are things still going on for the master plan. Here is a schedule of how we're landing the thing. November 9th is what we're projecting as hopefully the final meeting before planning board for adoption. And here are all the milestones to get us there, beginning with the municipal resource inventories or interviews that are taking place. My voice is a little hoarse because I've been in all these interviews for this past week. It's been really great 2-hour conversations with staff, on their different specialties and the historic preservation officer, for example, I had recommendations from the historic commission and one of the members met today with the open space manager, and she had some recommendations from some of the groups in town to add to the discussion. So it's really been a very, it's how the sausage is made in some ways, but it's been very enlightening, even just for me to hear from some of these groups, particularly on elements like the utilities one, for example, where that's not, a lot of the things in there aren't the number one thing the public is commenting on, which doesn't mean they're not important. They're actually, important for us to do anything in there. But having those meetings with, say, the sewer engineer to talk about the status of pump stations will, help us get that element that you'll eventually start to see in June, mid-June on here, the first draft of each one. As I mentioned before, we're moving from the overall steering committee to subcommittees, and we'll have a meeting of them at the end of March, beginning of April. I think it's broken up into 5 or 6 groups. And I'm going to send an email out with all this information and then some tomorrow to the steering committee, to the master plan subcommittee, and to the planning board members overall. You'll see on there, we still have the community survey and the open house. The community survey comes first, like last time, but we want that to be after the subcommittee meetings. If there's any outstanding questions that we really want the community to weigh in on, or just some of these kind of larger issues that we want to drill into. The open house, we don't have a firm date yet, other than to say the end of May. I've been working with the master plan, and I always forget it. Louise, can you help me not the
The
support
support
team,
team?
master plan support team with staff, with other members of municipal staff to just figure out how we could reach some other groups that might not have been represented at the last one. So we're still figuring out dates, does a Saturday work better than the Wednesday night? Does a different location work better than the library? Those kind of things. So we'll be sure to do the same thing we did last time, though, once we get that finalized of speaking with community groups, sending out op-eds, sending out social media, all those sorts of things. And I won't go into too much detail, but you'll see we'll have additional subcommittee meetings aligned with each draft of the element, a final overall steering committee meeting or two of them, planning board presentation, and then a month later, the adoption. And one thing that's not on here, because these are milestones, we'll be doing all sorts of other outreach, from pop-ups in Heinz Plaza, where I'll be there speaking with people, to office hours at places around town once we have the plan to discuss and get members of the community involved. Community group meetings. A lot of those have actually still been going on. I think this Sunday night I've been invited to speak with the PCDO. A few weeks ago, I spoke with some of the Latin American Legal Defense Fund Futuro students, high school students. So those are all still going on as well. And I think that's about all I had on this one. And then I have one other announcement, but I imagine there's probably some questions.
Questions for Justin about any of what he just showed and described? We'll look forward to the note tomorrow. I don't see hands up, so.
Oh, I guess.
Oh, I'm sorry.
raise my regular
Zenon.
hand.
I didn't
Sorry.
I didn't see you lean forward that way. Go ahead.
Yeah, no, I was just going to ask about the website again, whether or not anything has happened with that.
Yeah, so we're updating it with all these dates. We're updating it with additional information. That economic survey or economic report will be done soon. That'll be uploaded. And we are, there are other things that are on those milestones that we're still talking about adding in, like the idea wall or a virtual open house to go along with the other one. So we don't have any update on that now, other than to say we're going to get all this information out there and figure out what we need to do to kind of add on to it.
Yeah. David,
David?
I think has.
Oh, sorry. Are you done, Zenon?
No, I was just saying that David has his hands up. Hands
Right.
up.
Yeah, I just was curious, number one, will staff be meeting at all with the subcommittees of the steering committee if their expertise is relevant to the subject matter that the subcommittees will be going over? And number two, are members of the steering committees serving on more than one subcommittee in any cases? Just sort of curious how that's how the steering committee is being assigned to the different subcommittees.
So generally, each subcommittee is two elements of the plan, two kind of complementary ones. The only one that's not, I think it was actually Councilwoman Sachs' suggestion at our retreat, is to separate the historic preservation and the economic development. There's not as much of a natural tie there as there is with, say, land use and housing. So that's kind of the framework of I think it's 5 groups. And then to your question, there will be members of the committee on multiple ones. A lot of it's based on expertise. It's also frankly based on the time commitment they could do. So there certainly will be that, and I'll send it out tomorrow and you'll see. And then just the last question or the other question about having staff at those meetings. We didn't envision that going by the consultant's kind of recommendation. What we were going to do for the subcommittees is provide a packet of information that synthesizes everything we've heard so far, including in these staff interviews, but also from the community visioning survey, from previous plans and reports, things like that. So I would say, for as important and as helpful as the staff interviews have been, it's just one piece of the puzzle. So we could have staff, but I think we would have to think if, you know, I don't want it to be like one person, even a staff member, you know, if it's myself talking about land use and zoning, as I did today with Derek and Dan and the consultant. I wouldn't want whatever idea I had, you know, to be like at the forefront when, so, you know, when the group might not agree or some of the data might not agree with that. So I think we probably will not, but I think that's something over the course of those 3 meetings, we can definitely, you know,
Pull people in
think-
if it seems, yeah.
I think so. Yeah. Yeah.
Jack?
Yeah, I have a question about Princeton Futures. I'm a member of the Rotary Club of Greater Princeton. And last Friday, the theme, the speech of the day, the discussion of the day was all about transportation. And apparently, a whole series of open houses, discussions that Princeton Futures has held on a variety of subjects, but including transportation. And then in addition, and it was a very interesting presentation, but in addition to that, it was suggested, why don't I stop in at the library on Saturday for the open house? Well, I didn't stop in, but I listened on Zoom, and I was amazed. First of all, it was very well attended. Secondly, there were lots of citizens' questions that were right on point, I thought. And it was an interesting discussion. It raises the question in my mind, and it's a neutral question, to what extent, in what way have we integrated Princeton Futures into what we're doing? They make a very constructive introductory pitch about their relationship, their involvement in the planning process, the master planning process. So it doesn't sound as if there's competition. It sounds helpful. Is it? What's going on? Tell me, what role is Princeton Futures playing in what we're doing, Justin?
Sure, certainly. And I got a chance to attend the last hour of that meeting too, and I agree with you completely. There was some, you know, really vital, important information in there. And I think some of the other members might have been on that, and some of the other members might have been on Princeton Future at one point. So we certainly, you know, we welcome that complimentary kind of track that they're going. Sheldon Sturgis actually sends me all their books, and I try to watch some of the recordings if I can't make the meeting. And you know, I certainly recommend, if you can't make the meeting, you know, feel free to attend their meetings. If you can't make the meeting, feel free to read the book or watch the video that comes out of each of them. We do have one Princeton Future member is on the master plan steering committee, so we're kind of interlinked that way.
Board member, Princeton Future board member.
Yeah, excuse me, yes. And you know, I know they've been well represented at the events that we've had so far too. So there's no formal ties other than I suppose the steering committee member, and just, you know, this isn't that big of a town, so we make it there, they make it here, that sort of thing.
Yeah.
Thanks, Jack. Any other questions for Justin?
Well, I think Jack raises a good point. It's me again.
Mhm.
I wonder if you know, I understand that, like, you know, Princeton Future has their events and shares their ideas. I mean, I believe we were told not to attend their meetings in the past, but you know, it's kind of hard not to hear their ideas. And you know, I think that the transportation meetings, I believe we were, you know, allowed to attend or encouraged to attend or whatnot. But you know, I think that it does, Jack raises a good point about like how, you know, we might want to you know, look at what they've done. I mean, you know, they have done a lot of good work. You know, I know that they're not the selected consultants and they're not the ones that are making the master plan. But I mean, I wonder if there should be potentially, you know, presentation or it, you know, how I don't know if the consultant is, you know, viewing their work. I mean, I think that, you know, obviously we don't want to, like, you know, take everything, we gotta, look at everything, fairly and whatnot. I mean, they're not the consultants, like I said, but, I think, we should at least consider, looking at some of their work and, using what we feel is good. Because I think that, they have sort of augmented a lot of the community participation that, we haven't really done thus far. And I don't know if we will, because we're only doing really one more open house, and I'm not quite sure how much online engagement we're going to be doing. So yeah, that's just my thoughts.
Yeah, and I mean, well, first of all, as far as the meetings that we should or should not attend, my understanding, and Jerry, please correct me if I have this wrong, is that the meetings that they have where like specific areas or specific properties are discussed, and the point is for the folks there to, I guess could be said that it's not all that different from what's happening Saturday, but anyway, there have been several meetings where the agenda was to discuss desirable land uses in specific areas or on specific tracts of property that are likely to either very likely or somewhat likely to turn over and be developed in a different way in the coming years. And that I thought that we were cautioned against going to those kinds of meetings, but these meetings where they have been talking about mobility and trouble spots around town, which mirrors some of what we were asking people to weigh in on in the first open house that we did, is I think a different. So I think you sort of need to take those one by one, and we can consult with Jerry about what he feels based on what the agenda is about whether or not it's appropriate for planning board members to attend. But I agree, it's been really interesting to see what people have said at those. I will point out that I know Justin has cast the net really, really broadly to try to bring in voices that you just, and perspectives that we rarely hear in these kinds of conversations. And so while I agree, and I too noted that the attendance at last week's Princeton Future Forum at the library was really good, it is a group of maybe 30 people, 40 people. And it's just important for us to hear from just a very, very wide cross-section of the town that you don't necessarily get on Saturday mornings at the library. But I don't say that to cast shade, because I really, really do respect what they've done. And those booklets, my understanding is that those booklets and reports that come out of these sessions are forwarded to the consultant, and they do have access to those also. David?
Yeah, I had one very specific comment, which is that I attended, I think, the land use session that they held a month and a half ago. And one of the members of the team, the consultant team for the master plan, was in attendance at that meeting. So I think that the consultants have been availing themselves of the input that's being received. So that's just partly an answer to Zenon's question about whether they're getting this information. And then the other comment that I would make is, and this is sort of in line with what Louise was just saying, but I do think that Princeton Future has a very specific agenda for Princeton, one that I'm fairly sympathetic with, but is not necessarily representative of the whole community. And so I think that it's important that their input be weighed alongside the other input that's being received through the broader outreach process.
Thank you for that.
I mean,
Sorry, Zena?
sorry, I guess, Jack, I was just going to make a quick suggestion that, I mean, perhaps, you know, as part of this master planning process, we allow for members of the public or, you know, groups like Princeton Future to present, you know, some of their work. I mean, Princeton Future has done a significant amount of work. I don't know if they can really summarize it all in a presentation, but I mean, I feel like it might be helpful to, you know, hear what they've done. I mean, I thought that we weren't allowed to attend a lot of them, so I haven't really seen all the work that they've done. But I mean, I think that, you know, I understand that, you know, maybe they have a bias. I mean, I think that a lot of the stuff that they've done has just been reporting on, you know, what residents have literally said. So it's like, you know, they're taking, you know, people's like words and just reporting on it. Maybe, you know, certain, you know, things have more of a slant. But, you know, I think that it would be interesting to hear from them, and, you know, maybe other members of the public as well, maybe allowing a platform or a forum, you know, maybe having a meeting, you know, planning board meeting one time that, you know, allows presentation. Yeah. That's it.
Jack,
Yeah, just quickly.
and
as a
then
matter-
Tim?
Quickly, as a matter of information, and please, if it's not appropriate to deal with this here, perhaps you could give me a call, David. What is the bias, or could you share with me where is Princeton Futures coming from? I know they've been around for a long time, and they love to talk about the founders and Mr. Goheen. I'm not aware. What is their mission or their bias, or whatever the proper term is for the comments that you and Zenon have made?
In a nutshell, I'd say it's smart growth.
Okay.
And there's I have that bias too. Truth be
Yeah.
told, I mean, but you know, there are varying interpretations of that for sure. Yeah, I'll leave it at that. Tim?
I would think, and again, respecting the sessions that Princeton Futures held and the feedback that they've solicited from members of the community, I don't think they should be given a special presentation before the full board or before the steering committee. I think their voices are being heard, as we learned tonight about the work product being shared with the consultants. They're represented on the steering committee, and they will have an opportunity as members of the public to comment when the individual elements and the full plan comes before the board for discussion and deliberation. So again, I don't want this to be taken at all as a criticism. But I would echo what Councilman Cohen said and what Ms. Wilson said, which is that I don't think that we can, I don't know how quite to put this without it winding up looking bad by a member of the media who's present. So I will just say that I think that they will have ample opportunity to be heard, and they are being heard. And I think this is the second or third time that the that the board has discussed Princeton Future with regard to the master plan. And I think we need to be clear that the master plan is a product of this board, as informed by as many of the members of the public who we are able to reach and hear from, and that my views or Councilman Cohen's views or Ms. Wilson's views or Princeton Future's views do not necessarily reflect the views of everyone in the community or a majority of the community. So I think ideally we've tried to create an open channel there. And I think I've said enough at this point.
Yeah, I think the open channel is a good way to think of it. And it'll be very interesting to see, when all of the data and information and input is gathered, how consistent the sort of broader message and feedback that we get, it's the master plan, how closely that tracks with what is being heard at the Princeton Future events. Because there is a lot of good insight that people share at those. for
Sure, and it could well. But
Mhm.
I think that, we have to be committed to the integrity of our process of trying to hear everyone and making conclusions based on all of the data and all of the input we're presented.
Yeah. But thank you. Any other questions
Um,
to the
sorry,
master plan, Zenon?
I do have one more quick question.
Mhm.
For these subcommittee meetings or subcommittees, you mentioned that members could sit on multiple subcommittees. I mean, are members being assigned, or can they choose which committees to be on? Because I mean, I might have multiple interests.
Yeah, we've assigned them based on people's interests. I consulted with the chair and our consultant based on people's interests and the time constraints that they might have. So I don't remember off the top of my head which one you might have been on, but I think it
Well, can we
aligns with your interest.
Can we choose to be on or other ones, or is it baked?
It's kind of baked. I don't want there to seem like, there's a hierarchy or there's like a good one and a bad one or anything like that, because I do think they are really important. I kind of made a faux pas by saying something about the utilities one. And then Louise and Christine Symington were like, no, we would absolutely love to be on that. So, they are kind of baked in.
Such a, I'm a geek that way. Anyway, we'll see all of the committee assignments tomorrow. And Zenon, if you have any objection, which I'm pretty sure you won't, but if you do, and feel really strongly about it, then reach out to Justin.
And I just had one more announcement. Like I said, I thought I'd be the longest part of this meeting, and that's proven true. Just the final one, we had interviews first and second round for the senior planner. Someone has accepted that role as of Tuesday, and with an April 17th start date. So I don't want to mention their name. I'm not sure if they told their current employer yet. They might want to wait till a Friday afternoon for something like that. But beginning April 17th, we'll be fully staffed in our department after about 50 weeks of not being that. So looking forward to it.
Congratulations, Justin. That is really good news, and we look forward to meeting this person. Maybe when you know that they've shared information, you can send around a little bio or something like that.
Absolutely.
Board members, yeah, great, thank you.
Hopefully you get a day off now, Justin.
Are other announcements anybody has? Okay, any subcommittee reports tonight? I don't think so, but
Well, the site plan subcommittee did meet I didn't prepare a report because Julie's the chair, but I don't know if you have a report, Julie.
I don't think I do. Justin, we're waiting on that doodle poll, right?
Well, so did we report back the last time the 23A? Oh, okay. So we're waiting on a doodle poll to schedule one more, just because of an MLUL deadline. Then we're moving to standing meetings. So we'll have that done, and then we'll move to third Wednesday of the month, the standing meeting for the minor site plan committee. The last meeting, there were applications recommended for approval and classified as minor for 23A Witherspoon.
That was it.
That was the only one. Yeah, yeah. I'm getting them confused now. So yeah.
And that's that's that old building in the middle of the block right next to Tulane Yard, in case people are curious.
Thank you. Going on to minutes. We have minutes from the September 22nd, 2022 regular meeting. Any comments?
I'll move to approve.
Moved by David,
Second.
seconded by Jack Taylor. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay. Next up, we have findings of fact, conclusions of law for trustees of Princeton University. This was a major site plan with variances, Hobson College on Elm Drive, block 45.01, lot 101, file number P 2222-163P. Any feedback or concerns about the resolution?
Nope.
And if not, would someone like to move that?
I'll move
Mr.
that as well.
Cohen moved it, and the
Second.
second
I'll
by
second.
Mr. Quinn. Great, thank you. Carrie, would you call the roll, please? You're on mute.
Thank you. Sorry about that.
No worries.
Mr. Cohen,
Yes.
Mr. O'Donnell,
Yes.
Mr. Quinn,
Yes.
Mr. Tex Zarni,
Yes.
and Mrs. Wilson.
Yes,
Motion carried.
thank you. And next we have, this will be carried, but an application from the Hun School at Princeton. This is preliminary and final major site plan for Poe Dormitory at Edgerstone and Wynant Roads, block 8203, lot 1. This is file number P 2222-288P. Mr. Mueller,
Yes, the notice is proper, proof of publication and service are in order, and the board does have jurisdiction.
Okay.
Justin, do you want to go back over why this is to be carried?
Sure. So our stormwater consultant was reviewing this after this was deemed complete, and there was some missing information for him to do his review, which affects, our engineers doing the review and giving you the, right information to make a decision. So once that was pointed out, the applicant agreed to provide that information and push this back till I believe it's May 4th.
Exactly.
yes, May 4th.
Yeah.
And as Mr. Mueller has said, if they need to carry it again, we can do this same show on May 4th. We're not completely certain they'll be ready by then, but probably will. And if they're not, that's okay. We can carry it again. Is that correct,
Yes.
Mr. Mueller?
Yes, and just for the information of the public, there'll be no further notice. The only notice of the new date is what was just given by Justin and the chair
Okay,
of May 4.
great. All right. There is no other business on the agenda. Mr. Cohen?
Move to adjourn.
Second.
Thank you, Mr. Cohen and Mr. Taylor. All in favor, please say aye.
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 I
Go back to watching college basketball.
Happy
that's-
holidays. Happy
If you're
holidays.
into that kind of thing. Yes, happy
Happy St.
St.
Pat's to
Patrick's
everyone.
Day.
Yeah,
Maybe
happy St.
Soda
Patrick's Day.
bread in the morning. Thanks, everybody. We'll see you in 3 weeks.
Yes, thank you.
Bye.
Thank you.